Hey everyone, today for another vlog, and today I would like to talk about how brain rot is a real thing. So, I'm referring to the kind of the old and maybe bit like associated boomer type of thing about how television is going to rot our brains. And I think in hindsight, as someone who's lived through, as someone who was born with, television already, and who's lived through social media and internet and whatever, I would say it's actually very accurate actually to say that television would rot our brains because what we have right now is way way worse than television in terms of like how much you can uh, be dissociated from reality and have your complete experience be at the whim of some external. It's not even a person really. It's usually like a committee or like a group of like people who don't really have your best interests at heart. Because for instance, many social media or many websites explicitly optimize for your retention time. They don't optimize for like quality of experience or how much you learn and how much you are genuinely entertained. Rather, what happens is they just optimize for you to stay on the site, which might involve like making you outraged, make you angry, or making you depressed or whatever, because those can actually keep you longer on the site. And it's kind of like how to say, it wasn't like explicitly optimized at first, but it seems like many of the emergent strategies when it comes to keeping people on site are have to do with negative emotions, like really just making people feel miserable, powerless, angry, depressed, anxious, and all that. And I think it's really important to take that seriously about yeah, I think it's really fair to call it brain rot, honestly. Like maybe the brain isn't actually rotting, but at least your experience of reality and yourself are so changed and distorted by the constant entertainment industry that it's really really dangerous to spend all of your time on the internet or whatever, just completely, through what you could call mediated experience, right? So, experience mediated by a third party, rather than just, as opposed to like experiencing reality yourself, right? So, nature or being with people or just enjoying a meal or doing something with your time, whatever. And yeah, it's something I've experienced yesterday because yesterday I decided to like read fiction, and my ability to focus was really not great. Like it was noticeably worse than when I was honestly even when I was a kid. Honestly, when back then I was on the computer, but like there was no I wasn't on social media or whatever. Like there wasn't like scrolling or whatever. It was just me playing video games. I think in some ways I actually had better focus back then than now. It's kind of crazy. So it's something I want to take very seriously because it's not just about it's what I've talked about in my first vlog, attention diet. It's not just about being able to focus and being able to work. It's also a lot about quality of life as well, because your enjoyment of life, to me, what I've noticed is that it's very much correlated with your ability to like stay present and like stay on what's going on right now. And when you cannot even focus on a book, it's very clear indication that you cannot stay present. And also another point related to quality of life is that a lot of things that bring genuine fulfillment in life as opposed to pleasure are things that are not easy in the short term, right? So just work relationships, for instance, are not easy, or like doing something that is genuinely meaningful to you as a living, that is not easy either. And so like those things are not rewarding immediately as much in the present, but they are much more rewarding in like a long term type of thing, right? It's much more like nourishing, you could say. Um, and yeah, it's a huge part of quality of life because when the only thing you have is like to compare it to like physical diet, if the only things you eat are like sweets, you might enjoy the sugar in the short term, but at some point you will just feel awful in your body, right? Whereas if you eat nourishing food, well, maybe it might not be as enjoyable in the present. Maybe it can, maybe it can. it's a fake dichotomy I don't agree with when it comes to physical food. That healthy food should somehow be less enjoyable than garbage. But in the in the non-physical realm, like not the physical body, I would say yeah, the trade-off is a bit more real, like in the sense that like the things that are genuinely fulfilling in life are rarely the things that fall into like hedonism or whatever, or like pure distraction. And it's yeah, it's really important for quality of life. It's not just about being someone who can work really well and be productive. It's also about simply being fulfilled from life. And I think the direction I'm going to go towards for the next, well, I won't say for the rest of my life, but especially for the next weeks, is to just really dramatically reduce the amount of like mediated experience I have. So, like, for example, I'm fine with video games, for instance, when it's like a video game that I can just play at my own pace or whatever. But like social media and like some sections of videos. I don't really struggle with that on YouTube, for instance, so that's fine. But like social media is especially bad. I don't know why I've been on Twitter way more than usual. I'm not sure. I feel like I'm kind of been going through the motions. But like the way I use Twitter now, and I'm going to do it. Probably going to keep it that way. Is that I allow Twitter to be used. No, I basically just block the home feeds, and that's basically what I block in general. Is that I block those like endless browsing things. So Twitter's home feed is something I block because it's really bad for your attention. Yeah, it's really bad for your attention and whatever. And yeah, that's the kind of things I would block, for instance, right? So deliberate browsing, I think, is fine, completely fine. But like endless browsing, that you're just completely at the mercy of whatever recommendation system is there. It's really dangerous. By the way, I just want to add it. Just a quick remark. A lot of people use the term algorithm, but it's really a bad term because algorithm is a very generic term in computer science. Right? I feel like people should just use the word recommendation system. It's a lot more precise, and it's actually like descriptive of what algorithm you're talking about. But whatever. Um, because there are many types of algorithms, even on YouTube, for instance, right? So you have the recommendation system, and then you would have an algorithm for like detecting spam or offensive content or whatever, and those are not the same things, right? So that's just an example. And yeah, just I think I'm gonna like commit to like reading books more. I think the reason why I don't read as much is because I kind of like uh, arbitrarily slow myself down because like I don't know why I was so obsessed with the idea of like reading nonfiction, but like the more I read nonfiction, the more I realize like it's in a way like sometimes fiction can actually say more about life than nonfiction. Weirdly enough, because a lot of nonfiction is about like very like abstract level type of thing, right? So like you take experience and then you try to create models from those examples to like explain something. So it has a lot to do with models, right? Because you want to explain. That's often what nonfiction is about. It's about explaining. I guess not autobiographies, but in a way, autobiographies are kind of fiction when you think about it, because of the mind's obsession with like storytelling and like how it will reshape the facts afterwards. Right? But yeah, I guess autobiographies are a type of nonfiction where it's not really the case. But I feel like a lot of nonfiction has to do with modeling the world, and it's very intellectual as opposed to just living life. Whereas fiction tends to be a lot more. Well, it can be very intellectual, of course, but it tends to be a lot more just really being the nitty gritty uh, daily life, even if it's a fictional character. And I feel like in a way it can actually say more about life than non-fiction. It's kind of funny realization I had. So right now I'm reading Bukowski. I'm just going through a list of books that have piqued my interest. It's Darren Allen's list of 100 books to read before. Let me see. What does he call it? 100 books to read before the end. And so now I'm just reading Bukowski as the recommendation goes. Yeah, and I'm really glad. And just as a final note, I'm really glad that like my native language is French, because French has a lot of like great great authors. Classic literature, of course, but also even more contemporary authors. And I'm really glad that I can read French as well as English. Um, yeah, it's about everything I had to say. So I'm just gonna commit to like reading more, eliminate all endless browsing feeds, and just spend my time more deliberately, because reading is actually quite enjoyable when you get into it. It's like again with like the dichotomy between like nourishing food and enjoyable food. It's to me it's a completely false dichotomy. I think it's kind of a false dichotomy I've kind of fallen for unconsciously. The idea that like reading is somehow this not enjoyable experience. It's really not true. Like reading can actually be very enjoyable. It depends on the author, of course, right? Because books are very diverse. Some books are as good for your mind as glue is for your brain. So I don't know. Um, yeah, but some books are really really enjoyable, and some books are really obscure and not fun to read. Like I came across like an audiobook reading of James Joyce, Finnegan's Wake, and my god, this doesn't sound fun at all to read. Like this is actually not like I expected it to be unenjoyable, but what I got was like unimaginably worse than what I could ever come up with. Like it's unbelievable. It really has to be experienced. At the very least, just the audiobook reading, because the guy does a really good job at like reading it, because it's to me it's completely incomprehensible. Like I don't think it's meant to be really understood literally, but it's more like street like flow of consciousness type of thing from what I've understood. But like I ju- I don't know. I literally don't know how I could ever get into it. But I mean I don't know. Maybe at some point in my life I will get into it. I don't know. But yeah. So yeah, that's about everything I had to say. So thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.